Avowed's release date is on the 18th of this month, and I went ahead and purchased the gold edition to play early to see if I wanted to budget some time for this game between a lot of the launches of this month. And in this video, let me give you my reason of why I refunded the game on Steam and have decided to skip Avowed, at least for now. Let me stop you real quick to tell you that this is not a negative-minded video. While I do have some gripes, which I will mention, this is more talking about my quick experience of the game. I don't want to ruin the fun for people that are enjoying it, which I think is often a trend in the gaming world these days. People are too polarizing their opinions without much wiggle room. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So let me give you a down and dirty, or at least my down and dirty, quick review of the game. Avowed is the best game of the 2025 Steam Summer Sale yet to come, which is to say that it's a solid game with an exciting combat system and a nice refresh of the Skyrim style of fantasy RPG. But it's a game I think is way better on Game Pass or on sale. It just doesn't feel like a $70 experience to me. And what's worse is that Avowed went with the worst launch window. Keep in mind, Assassin's Creed Shadows was due out in the same release slot. That's now pushed to March, of course. KCD, or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's release date was just 2 weeks ago, and Monster Hunter Wilds release is coming in 2 weeks. Not to mention, of course, Civilization 7's launch this month as well. So to me, it felt like Avowed was born to fail with a crowded month like this. I think had it come out in summer with fewer releases surrounding it, it would have made more waves as a great launch to hold you over to the bigger ones coming in the later portions of the year. What really gave me pause with the game was what felt like an overall stale experience. While the combat is fun and exciting, everything else feels hollow and dull. Avowed had the same problem as Outlands had for me. It didn't feel very alive and the world felt stagnant. Outlands felt so aloof. It was like, yeah, you can go do some quests if you want. Also, the character creator is just god-awful. You have the choice between making an ugly character or an even uglier character. There's tons of sliders, but no slider is going to rectify what looks like a hideous creation. So that was a hard hit of inertia that I struggled to overcome because I was already in a negative mindset. Overall, though, I think the game has a lot of great qualities, and I think it's a visually stunning game. Having a first or third person option with some fun platforming and puzzle elements is a fresh take on the Skyrim style that I mentioned before. What it comes down to is, do you have the time to play a game like this in the heat of the first wave of big launches of the year, especially when so many of those launches being Game of the Year contenders? For me, the answer was no. I can't take time away from KCD 2, which I'm loving, or the time I'm going to be spending on Monster Hunter Wilds, which I know I'm going to have a good time for. So returning the game made sense for my budget, both financially and time-wise. If not, I think you'll have a great time playing this game because it's not a huge, massive open world. It's really rather linear, so you'll be able to blow through it in something like, I don't know, it's like 40 hours without doing anything on the side. But that's the too long didn't watch this entire video. And I want to be respectful of your time. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I'm not going to be showing off any gameplay because I didn't capture enough during my playtime prior to the refund. I'll be showing off mainly trailers or videos from YouTube, so a bit of transparency there. But let's get started on my video review of Avowed. So to start us off on a negative note, let's talk first about the character creator. The character creator, I hate. I do not like it because I think one of the problems is you have the choice between making an ugly character or an uglier character. The presets are fine, but they're really not that awesome. And you do have a lot of power in that you can edit pretty much every little thing, but I just didn't like majority of what was being done because what I found was that the lighting of it messed it all up. So when you jump into the actual world, your character looks entirely different, which is a problem that a lot of games have with their character creators. And I just overall didn't enjoy many of the options. The character looked really funky to me. And if I could put a comparison into it, and I don't think many are going to get this, it was like I was playing EverQuest 2, which had just very funky looking textures for a lot of their characters. So it's not necessarily maybe the creator's fault, the character creator's fault, but overall the graphical choice or the texture choice that was made for the game as a whole. But again, any other character I talked to outside of the character creator, I was like, well, that looks like a perfectly normal person. My character doesn't really feel that way. Now, a lot of that could be locked to the godlike facial features, which I did shut off, but I also feel like that's a big portion of the game. You are a godlike character. This comes from the Pillars of Eternity world. So if you've played Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, this is part of that whole entire thing. So you are playing a godlike and you're not really able to tap into a godlike. To be fair too, they chose the most boring of the godlikes in my opinion. You can have godlikes that are based off of different elements, and I just did not like the ones that they chose. So it makes for really boring facial features. Like I have a whole ficus tree growing out of my eyeball, just threw me off. So that initially gave me a lot of inertia. And I think that this is a bigger statement to RPG character creation as a whole, and maybe less this game. That I feel like our character creators are locked in the past for so many of our AAA studios when we go and hit these indie studios that just knock it out of the park. And I think it's like, okay, we need to have different lighting on a lot of these character creators. We need to have the capability to push through stuff with better presets. Like when you play, oh God, there's a game that recently came out that has permutations wherein you choose a preset and then you choose, hey, you know what? I want the face here. And now it's going to give me 9 permutations of that face, and I can choose little tweaks to it, and allows you to push through. I think it was actually Monster Hunter Wilds that allowed me to do that. Either way, it's a game that came out within the last year. And I think like this is a good step forward for character creators, is to have me not get so lost in the sliders of the bridge of the nose, the tip of the lips, the how deep the chin is. And I go to do it and jump into the game world, and I've made a character who just looks like a flat pancake with Shrek ears. So I think it's like we have such a problem with character creators in RPGs because there's such a big portion of it, but they just don't really kind of hit it off all the time. So I've wasted 3 minutes to talk about a character creator, but like I said before, it just wasn't something that worked for me. And it might work for you, but I'm letting you know that that was the biggest sticking point in the early portions of my gameplay. Now, after that, though, we get into a really vibrant, beautiful world. This game is shockingly gorgeous. It has it's very well optimized too. I mean, what's nice here is that we're playing Avowed off of the back of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is another game that is very well optimized. And I think we're coming into an era where there's a better expectation for optimization. Now, I have read a number of experiences, though, of people crashing and having issues with quests. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary. I have a very strong computer because I do this for my job. So please consider those things. Don't jump in and go, well, fucking my computer can handle this. It's, again, I'm saying mine did a good job. And in doing so too, I enjoyed the combat system. I like how I can fluidly move between 2 different weapon sets. I like that I can dual wield if I want. I can use a sword and shield if I want. I can use daggers, whatever the situation it calls for. And the magic in this game is really cool looking, and it's really fun. It's really flavorful. It's really quick. It's not so boring. And like I've said in the intro, it's the right step in the right direction. And I think it's like, it's been so long since we've had Skyrim, right? And it's been so long now since we know the new Elder Scrolls is coming. And we have so many of these games that copy the DNA of the Skyrim style of RPG. And they've done really good positive conventions forward for it. So I think that, man, it's going to be way harder to do Elder Scrolls 6 because there's so many really positive steps forward that I think we're going to need to see in that game, which is totally off base from what we're talking about here. Sorry. But my point remains, I think that if you want to play a fantasy style of RPG that was not Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 just it just didn't really click with you. Cause you're like, nah, this isn't what I'm looking for. I was looking for more of a Skyrim style of game. This is it, right? This is going to really scratch that itch because it is very fun. And I think the combat is really addicting because it's very visceral and it's super pleasing. It's not so, what am I trying to think of here? Not time oriented, but when you play Elden Ring, right? Or any of the From Software games, there's a lot of timing elements to that. It's not so much the case here. You can pretty much just, hey, you know what? I'm going to block here. I'm going to attack here. I'm going to do a heavy hit and block and break open a shield. So it's a little bit more rudimentary in that scope, but there is a fast pace to it that is really fun. I think, an easy comparison to a game that came out recently when it comes to its combat, the feel and the style of the combat is it's very similar to Enshrouded. In fact, the game itself felt almost like I was playing in the Enshrouded engine, if you played that from a year ago, which is a survival RPG game that came out, well, again, around this time. So if you've played that game, you're going to feel very at home. It feels very similar to that. But I'd say on the negative scope at that, the game also is very floaty, almost like it has the physics engine of Halo, where you're jumping and you can jump way too high, way too far. You can move in midair. So there is that kind of element to it that I think will be abrasive to some people. They'll go to jump into it and go, I don't like how this feels. It feels too arcadey. And this will get into the negative portion in a little bit here that we'll talk about. But I think that it's the right step if you're looking to play something early in the year that is going to hit an RPG, a fantasy RPG, like I said, with a really cool progression system that is, I also feel at the same time, the progression system is it's a little broken in that it's very easy to just hit a cookie cutter that everyone's been posting about how OP magic is and just run with it. You can go with melee. There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that like it's overwhelming how strong magic is in this game that I think that you're just going to go like, well, I think I'm just going to play magic and blow things up and have a great time. So I think that there is a little bit less build diversity because of it, which is easily fixed with a patch though. So don't look at that and go, oh, this game's crap because of that. Well, again, easily fixed. So let me now kind of conclude here on my overall thoughts now that we've talked about two different sections of good and bads with the game. And I mean, I think you have a pretty good idea, right? I'm pretty much repeating myself now through all these sections, even the intro, but I think it is a great game. I think it does have really cool DNA in it, but I just don't think it's a game we need right now. You know, it's like that quote from Dark Knight. And I think that the things that I don't like about the game, and I don't like when people use like homogenized insults like, oh, it looks like a mobile game. That's stupid, dude. Like, it does not look like a mobile game. But I will say the game has a similar feel to the way a mobile game's world feels, in that when you jump into a mobile game, the game does not have a lot of depth behind what is right in front of you, right? And that's kind of how this game feels. It just doesn't feel like it's really going to whisk me away. It's the same impression. I've not played Dragon Age Veilguard, so this is anecdotal experience. It's the same way I felt looking at Veilguard, where I was like, this feels like oh, you've slapped a lot of really cool stuff on something and you need to look at the combat. And that's kind of unfortunately what Avowed feels like. And I think that the big piece of inertia here too is that Avowed exists within the Pillars of Eternity world. And the Pillars of Eternity world is a proprietary RPG world created by Obsidian. And it is so dense. Like, if you don't know the world, which again, it is really loreful and awesome, because Pillar of Eternity 1 and 2 are beautiful games. They're some of my favorite CRPGs. It can be, I think this game is very easy to bounce off of because of that. Because you're like, oh, I don't know who Wodica is. What is this? What the crap is that? And because of that too, the world feels like everyone's talking about a world you just don't understand, and you're trying to get it. And it feels like you've jumped in to episode 3 of a very heavy fantasy narrative TV show. It's like if you were to start Game of Thrones 3 seasons in the middle of the season, you're like, who's that? And someone's trying to explain it while it's going forward. I think that's a real important bit of this, because if you don't know that lore, this game is going to feel even more stale for you, in my opinion. And if I were to compare this to another series that had a really good run and then just released a kicking simulator, if for those that are of my age, from the Stone Age, that have played the Might and Magic games, not the Heroes of Might and Magic games. The Might and Magic is the RPG, Heroes of Might and Magic is the strategy games. Might and Magic 1 through 10 were hack and slash RPGs where you were dungeon delving. And the 6, 7, and 8 are kind of like the lauded holy ones in the series. Well, around 2006, they released Might and Magic Dark Messiah. This game is just like that. It feels just like Dark Messiah, where the world doesn't really feel super alive, but it's kind of fun to thrash around on a sword and kill things and kick them into spikes. And you've got some really fun spells that do a lot of magic and cool damage, and it's first person and it's RPG, and these cool systems interact with each other. But magic is king, because Dark Messiah had the same thing. And I feel like this fits in that same thing, where you have a really interesting world, a really awesome lore background, you have a really awesome established IP that you then shoehorned in a first-person RPG game that you're going to just kind of throw at people. Like I said in the intro, I feel like this game was built to fail after a certain point. maybe the development got to a point they're like, well, let's just release it along with all of these Goliaths in the first in Q1 of 25, and hopefully we'll pick up our money in Game Pass sales, or I don't even know how Game Pass does money back to the developers, or we'll try to scoop up money on Steam sales. Like I just don't know how that all really works out, because it felt again like it was built to fail, because the only thing of this month that has moved its release date has been well, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 moved it into February, but Assassin's Creed moved it out and into March. So this just doesn't feel like it was going to stick to begin with. And I think that's unfortunate, because I still think this is a great game. It's just not a $70 game. It's better on Game Pass. It's better on sale. And I think it's a game that people are going to come back to in Steam Summer Sale and go, I don't understand why I didn't play this earlier. This is really fun. It's because I think you just couldn't budget the time to play it right now, especially if you're playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. If you're playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I wouldn't touch this game because you're going to cheat one or the other. So I'd say enjoy Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, then pick this up after, when it'll be on sale for sure. But hopefully this gives you an idea of my impression of Avowed. I didn't play more than 2 hours. Again, that is the policy for Steam. I can't play more than 2 hours to refund a game. So I don't have the entire picture here. I know the game gets better. I've seen gameplay. I've read reviews. I've watched Fextralife's review and all sorts of stuff. And I'm sure it becomes awesome. But for the time investment it requires to get to that point, it didn't make sense for me, because I've got so much stuff I've got to be dealing with. And it also didn't look like it was going to get that much better, where I was like, and considering too, I bought the gold edition to get early access into it. I was like, this was definitely worth the 80 or 90 bucks, whatever I spent. Definitely wouldn't be worth that in what I've seen in the end game of what it looks like. And you definitely get cooler looking, but again, it doesn't look like it's going to be $80, $90 cool. But again, that is my down and dirty here for Avowed. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Are you playing? Are you enjoying? Are you waiting for it to play on Game Pass coming out this week? Whatever it is, let it be known in the comments below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.